You know, I don't even want to say it, man. It's well. It's probably, you know what, today, man, it's just been absolutely wild witnessing this BS that's happening across the board. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The court tries to stop the tariffs. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They're back on. Oh, God, it's just, this is an absolute dog show, you know? And I ain't talking about Crufts either. It is honestly a judicial attack on Trump, or Trump's trying to give it into into the judicial service. Can't even say it properly. And then you've got the idea that what else was there in this week in the actual data? What was it? What did he say? I've completely forgotten. That's how baffling it has been. When we look at it from a technical point of view, yeah, Bitcoin did what it needed to do, but it's been such a treacherous range. And this is what I'm trying to explain to you all about the markets these days. It is rough as hell. Really is. You know, the concept of listen, when the markets regulate again, when they go back to normal, then that's when you're probably like, if you're effectively making money in these markets, or you're breaking even or anything like that, when the markets do come back to their normal basis, yep, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to enjoy yourself. You're going to be making gains, and ain't going to be no BS from 1 minute to another. And it's very hard to navigate the marketplace when all it takes is just one comment and the markets react. Nvidia traders were like, hold on a second, man, we were killing it today. That sell order is still up there for 2 million at the 144 region. Tell a lie. Tell a lie. They've pulled it. It's now 188,000. They've pulled that liquidity, so the expectation of price going higher might not be coming into play for Nvidia. But what do we know? Well, look, we've had this story that Trump has met Powell. That was unannounced. And he said, look, don't make the mistake of not cutting the rates. They're too high. You need to cut them. And Powell said, we're not going to do anything that's going to be politically motivated. It's been an absolute dog show. Let's break it all down, ladies and gentlemen. Just before we do, actually, if you've all probably noticed on next to your YouTube names, okay, in the chat, you've got like this little purple crown. So basically, if you send chats, okay, if you start typing away in this chat, you get on the leaderboard, you get an XP, and you're number 1 in the live stream. So we've got a lot of number 2s right now, and I can see who is effectively in lead. So a lot of people with 75 XP. So the more you chat, the more you engage with each other, the more XP you get. And you effectively get a leaderboard. So a place for fans to stand out in the community. The top 3 get a special badge in the live chat. And it resets every stream. So you can always try again. So yeah, the more you chat, the more XP you get. So if we can get, let me see. So if we can get Excellence is set up there with 75 XP. Slacker, that's you. All right, so let's get with the flavor. Let's see who can get the most XP. Happy days. So, all right, let's just break it all down, ladies and gentlemen. Understand what we've got going off right now. Here we are. So, the rally fades on Tariff, Angus, and bonds climb. So, if the bonds starting to climb, ladies and gentlemen, that only means one thing. Investors are trying to find safety. The yields are pulling back, and they're pulling back quite aggressively. So when the yields go down, the stock market in principle should be going up. But no, what's going on now is investors are like, we better sort something out, because I'm not liking the idea of now Trump's got this story with the US courts. Decision comes less than 24 hours after the trade court ruled president's global levies to be illegal. So tariffs could come across as illegal, but now all of a sudden there's a block on actually stopping the tariffs. So you've got the block on China, well, the extension on China. You've got one on the Eurozone, okay? And Levette today, did anybody notice when Levette was talking? It's like she was out of breath. She was like, yes, we're here, we're there. And she was talking about the decision to not allow trans women in prisons. Started going off on wild tangents. And like, you know, it's just unbelievable watching her. And anytime she was mentioning the idea of reinforcing the idea of the tariffs, it's like she was short of breath. She's like, yes, we need to do this. And this has to happen. The administration, this and that. For God's sake, man. You know what? These are the best times, in my opinion. These are the wildest times in the marketplace. I don't think we've ever had such an engaging marketplace where someone talks, the market moves. Someone doesn't talk, the market gets concerned. You've got IDF missiles being intercepted, not IDF missiles, but IDF intercepting missiles, okay? So it's all happening, ladies and gentlemen. And when I say to you, the uncertainty is very, very real. The yields coming down and the bonds going up represents investors thinking, yeah, all right, the shoe bag is starting to get very difficult. We need to start parking ourselves. I mean, they had a relatively decent bond auction, but quickly going over everything across the board just to put it into perspective. Here we go. So the euro makes a nice move to the upside, and now it's coming back down a little bit. This was a wild move on the euro. Of course, it was motivated by the fact that Hessen said that we are going to overturn the tariffs, the court ruling. Well, guess what? You've already done that right now. And what you've got to understand is euro, gold, and yen have been behaving as safe havens. So any moment that investors feel like they're concerned about something, they will go to the safe havens of the euro, the safe havens of gold, the safe havens of the yen. But we've also had good news regarding the marketplace where, again, the issuance of Japanese bonds coming down. So they're not looking like they're going to be releasing more bonds for people to pick up because they're just accumulating lots and lots and lots of debt. It's got investors concerned, but the yields on those yen have gone down. The Japanese yen is trading upwards, and you can see the carry traders come in, maybe some profit-taking opportunities are coming in, which would then naturally end up sending the yen back down again. Going over into the dollar dominance, the dollar just cannot stop, man. It's just struggling, but it's holding out very, very well inside of this range. The prospect is we should end up seeing it climbing back up. We're now going back into the story of tariffs. Where does that leave us with Bitcoin? Well, is this the top? How many of you are on the basis that this is the top and that is it for Bitcoin, given that the ETF balance has seen an increase of nearly 480 million, which we spoke about earlier on? Let's quickly go over to the ETF balance itself and have a look at where we are in that respect. 659 still looking fine. And then we've got, here we go. So ARK has moved some 249 Bitcoin into Coinbase, not really, and Grayscale back up to it again with that madness. So yeah, we're not really seeing anything offloading right now. So the real question is, ladies and gentlemen, is this now the time to start getting into Bitcoin? Well, I would be very, very cautious because the instability of the marketplace. If investors ain't going into Bitcoin because they could have seen it as maybe a safer option, given the madness that they even said earlier on today that, what did he, Nervo said, I've forgotten his name, but he said today to reporters that the tax cuts will reduce the trade deficit, the US deficit, if you just do the math properly. The math is you cut taxes. You've already got a deficit where every dollar that you earn, you owe 126% on top. The thing is, all they need to do is just print. And Powell's like, yeah, we're not going to do anything politically motivated. Powell, shut up, man. You and your stupid. Anyway, look, so the unemployment claims come out today, and it was 240,000. All right, GDP price index came in at 3.7. GDP came in higher. So that's what effectively has shocked the marketplace in the sense where Wall Street traders were cheering solid results from NVIDIA, but had to face the harsh reality of slowing economic data and legal uncertainties around Trump's trade war. And there you go. He's making a mistake for not cutting the rates. It doesn't matter, Trump. It really doesn't. Bitcoin's price action right now. Go over to the daily time frame. We are coming into a very, very important zone. Look, this is the first time that Bitcoin has closed below the 5 and 13 EMA. Now, listen, I am going to be brutally honest with you all. If you don't like what I'm going to say, the game is not for you. It really isn't. Okay? When someone says this, now's your chance to get Bitcoin at a discount, that's on the premise that you want to average down. On the idea that price is going to keep on, it's going to pull back, and then it's going to keep pulling back, and then it will then find its way at some point in the future. I can't rely on that sort of analysis. I can't be on the idea, yeah, at some point it's going to go. That's like saying Bitcoin from now is going to go to 13 million in 2045. So just buy it now. How many of you want to wait till then? Or how many of you want the idea of Bitcoin being that price now? So if you want the idea of Bitcoin being at that price now, and Robert Kiyosaki, okay, he's saying Bitcoin's going to go to 1 million, even though he's saying the markets are going to completely crash. I've said it. Bitcoin needs to see an event. And the event needs to be so catastrophic to the financial world to the point where investors have no choice but to go into Bitcoin because they know it performs. Okay? But let me break the reality down. This is the first time Bitcoin has crossed over the 5 and 13 EMA and closed strongly. Look, when was the last time it closed below the 5 and 13 EMA? The last time it did that was in April. Since then, it has not been able to close below the 5 and 13 EMA together. Look, yeah, come down, come back up. Come down, come back up. But it has never crossed over and closed below the 5 and 13 EMA on the daily time frame since April, okay? Since that low. You lose this moving average. The next thing that we need to consider is the following. The daily candle or the sentiment that goes into tonight and, of course, tomorrow, because, you know, you've got Asia tonight. They, too, are going to see what's going on. Likewise, last night, NVIDIA did well. NASDAQ followed through with some nice flavor. Bitcoin came up. And that was all in the Asian session. Today, NASDAQ. Stop, run up, come back down. Okay? Looks like it's doing okay, but it's swept this liquidity. And it's come back up into this vector candle region up here, so close to its all-time high. It's giving it all back. The only next logical spot of support for Bitcoin is down here. And we've just broken into that range, right? From a bid and offer perspective, we're starting to see not even enough bids. The bids are not coming in. And I'm not liking that. Bids are not coming in. It's like all of a sudden, all the dudes that were buying over here have now realized the return. That's the crap thing. Yeah? They bid, they realize the return. But when you're buying like $50, $60 million worth of Bitcoin or $3, $4 million worth of Bitcoin, you're making a return on that, regardless of how much it moves up. Yeah? That's why you see these little dips. They happen so quick and then price reverses back up. So, given that the bids are not coming in just yet, and I'm not seeing significant bids, likewise, offers, they're not really significant. They're just small. Nothing above 10 million just yet. And that's me going up. Oh, 17 million at 107,454. If Bitcoin closes below this 13 EMA, which unless it shoots back up to 107,164, okay, or closes positive for the day, then the next daily candle might actually do some very interesting behavior. Going into the calendar tomorrow, we've got the core price index. They're expecting it to come up. What does that tell you? Inflation. So if the core price index is going to go higher, then the Fed's like, okay, we'll keep interest rates as they are. It's data dependent. We'll wait and see. I mean, when are they going to actually? And I truly believe that the day that they actually cut the interest rates, I believe that's when the Fed will pivot. And then that will be an opportunity for the markets to really correct, to then instantly reverse back up to price in that cut, in my opinion. Because historically, when the Fed pivots, that's when you expect the market to correct, you know? But they're holding out very well, ladies and gentlemen, holding out very, very well. Okay, then. So, Tino, do you think the Asian market pushes Bitcoin down to fill their buy orders? The issue that I've got with Bitcoin right now is the fact that there's no buy orders. There is buy orders, but there's no real buy orders. Let me explain. Where's the biggest buy order that you see on this chart? Let me just show you right here and just pull up the large limit order. At 105,650, you've got an order that's come in for 10.57 million. Okay. Going down. Let me just show you. Going down, nothing. There is nothing. The most I've seen right now is 3 million, 4.7 million. That's at 105,322. And we're going, yep, 2 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1, 1.7, 1, 1 million, 1.7, 3, 1.5, 1 million. What does this tell you, ladies and gentlemen? If those of you that are down with the volume profiles, right, what does that tell you? You know, tell me, what does that tell you? I'll explain to you what it tells you. Let me just show you something. Here in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, okay, this is a little bit of game. Here is the volume profile. Let me just change the time frame just to help you understand this, right? Those of you who are volume profile traders, right? So here's the volume profile, right? And, you know, it's like this, you got that, and it does all this stuff, right? Okay, so here is principally a high volume node. So that's where most of the volume transacted in that range. And here is a low volume node, okay, where the least amount of volume has transacted, okay? And you got another high volume node there and another high volume node there, okay? And then you got a smaller one right here. This is where price, for example, from the highs up here, will come down to that point, and it's either going to bounce from there or it's going to go through it. But given it's a low volume node, chances are it's going to go through it. Goes down to the high volume node, you get a reaction. How good's the reaction? Well, not as great. And then they end up rolling down to the next volume node until they find the point where they can actually initiate a transaction to then make the reversal and then come back to that, maybe that high volume node. And then if they're able to sustain that point, they'll then correct and then move away from it. And then you guys would understand that this high volume node right here would be the point of control, or it would be a massive area of support for price to go into to then reverse. So how am I understanding from this point of view right here, based on the bids that are coming into the market, what could there be, or what could this lead to? What I'm seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, given that there's not any bids that are coming in at significant amounts, it tells me that in the bid order flow, we have got a number of low volume nodes. I haven't got any big bids that are sat in the order book. So that means by the principle of a high volume node, this is transactions that have already happened. And I'm putting 2 and 2 together to understand that based on the volume profile principle, if I have got enough orders that are bringing me the idea of high volume to be transacted, I can assume that that's where the market is going to reverse from. Yeah? So if you remember in the live stream a couple of days ago when we were looking at Bitcoin yesterday, I said, remember that $50 million bid and that $32 million bid? Well, they came down and picked them up, and then they ended up sending Bitcoin back up. So those guys made their money. Let's just see if they actually sold it. Let's see. 2.564 million, 4.2, nothing there. Let's go here. 6.4, 5, 2, 1.56, 4 million, 3 million. So we can't see if they've sold it or not, okay? But the idea is that the 50 million was down there. Go and watch yesterday's New York live stream. And we were saying like, oh, the 107, I think it is, and all that stuff. And then it came down towards that point, right? That logic is what I'm assuming here with the volume profile of the bids and the offers. There's not any big bids down below. So that means in principle that the market might not have a problem breaking down because there's not enough bids to support the idea of a reversal to trigger the guys who are bidding big to then want to sell. Because as prices are going down and they're bidding, the offers are coming into play because they anticipate that price could initiate a reversal back up. Right? Are you with me on this? 48 million sold at 105,999. Okay, then. Happy days. Where was it? 105,999. Where? 104,000. What? 105,999. 105,999. Where's that? Where are you reading that? I'm not seeing that order. Never mind. Big whales are not selling. When you see all the whales dumping, then the top is in. The top is not in yet. The thing is, though, as much as the top isn't in, if we go on the idea that the top is not in, right, then what do you define as fundamentally the top? Let me explain. Just because Bitcoin's pulled away from this point and it's swept the liquidity of the all-time high and it's now made another all-time high, okay? And now it's pulling back. Define the top. Because price can easily come down to here. Can easily come to 90,000. Is the top still in? Yeah. The top's still good. As in the sense like they can still move back up. Look at this. The top is in. It was on the premise that from this range of this high, Bitcoin was going to slump all the way down. As long as support comes into play, the top is never in. Especially with an asset like Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean Bitcoin can't go from 106 all the way down to 86. Because you've still got a valid move to the upside. I know they say zoom out. But if you really want to be optimistic about Bitcoin, just go to the 12-month time frame. You're doing good. No worries. If you want to maintain bullish sentiment, go to the 12-month time frame and look at the chart once a month. Start of every new monthly candle. Oh, sorry, once a year. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You've got 7 more months before you need to worry about another candlestick. Now off you go. There's your no idea of any top there. What I'm trying to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, is this. People will hold on to the idea that the top is not in, the top is not in. But they can easily see that Bitcoin's price. See, look, when Bitcoin price corrected here, the top came in, okay? And then it pulled back, but then it came back up to the top side again. So the top's never in. The top will only be validated if from this high up here, Bitcoin comes and loses all the way here, 74,000, and then it continues to go down. Do you understand the accumulation that can happen between these two ranges of Bitcoin? This is the longest range that Bitcoin accumulated from its all-time high. This is another accumulation range from Bitcoin's all-time high, okay? It's still good, but not to tell you, okay, forget about it, uncertainty across the board. Bitcoin is still being subject to things across the board. And the problem is, you're saying whales are not selling, okay? But do you know what whales you're dealing with? Long-term holders, cohorts with balances above 10,000 Bitcoin are starting to take profits. So if a whale above 10,000 Bitcoin is not that person to you, and it's a whale that has over 100,000 Bitcoin is a whale to you, then what is that? You see what I mean? It's like those whales are taking profits. And Bitcoin's not got to a point. It's $106,000, man. Why is everyone complaining? But of course, you want to pay high prices, then be my guest. Buy it. Buy it. If you can absorb a move lower. And you're not complaining when it goes to 99 or 96, because it's still good if it goes there. It's all about the differences in price from when you buy it and sell it. When you're not so fixated on the idea of what someone else is doing and focus on what the charts are saying to you and the idea of what's going on around the board in terms of the economic stance with interest rates and what have you. Okay, look, naturally, interest rates being high naturally takes investors away from high-risk investments. But when you start seeing high-risk investments outperforming the logic of high interest rates, especially when you've got Bitcoin, which would be deemed as a hedge against inflation, okay, then investors will start naturally going over there, okay? But one thing you got, what the hell's happened here? Oh, my God. But one thing you've got to take into consideration is this. You've got 2 ways that you can get exposed in Bitcoin. You either get exposed on the ETF. Where is it? Yeah. You get exposure via the ETF, which is where 90% of all the institutional investors are sat, okay? Or you can go and buy Bitcoin naturally like so. Then you've also got institutional leveraged traders who will short Bitcoin and probably go over and buy it on the ETF. Or they'll have shorts on Bitcoin, but they will also leverage shorts, but then they could also go and buy Bitcoin on spot in case they have to cover themselves in terms of a hedge, all right? Your Bitcoin ain't being traded the way you expected it to trade back in the day. You've got Wall Street mentality and Wall Street strategies that are coming into play. And this is the thing about Bitcoin. A lot of people are married to the idea that, yeah, but the whales aren't selling yet. Balance is over 10,000. They spoke about it 2 days ago. They're taking profits right now, which you damn right should. If you've been buying Bitcoin in these accumulation zones and you've effectively earned yourself a nice little rally up, nearly 8%, well, if you're a whale and you hold over 10,000 Bitcoin and you've been buying loads of it here and you make 10% on your portfolio, I mean, come on, man, that's like nearly 10, 15 million, depending on the balances. If you're not going to take any profits on 10, 15 million, you're a dick. Sorry, you're a dunce. Sorry. Dick Tracy is a really... that's it. Richard. It's the nickname for Richard. That's what I meant. I just forgot to put that in there. I'm really sorry. Just keep buying that dip. Oh. Tino is getting married. What? Interesting. He looks Indian or Pakistani. But just because I haven't shaved. I just haven't bothered shaving. Okay. So it's not that I haven't bothered, but yeah. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions? PSA. The money printing doesn't stop, so Bitcoin has no top. 1 trillion debt in interest per quarter on US debt. Just buy and hodl for the win. Here for the mob and the ladies of the night stories. Do you know what, though? The problem is just buy it kind of mentality. The problem is when people see it going up like this and they just buy it, it pulls back and they get shaken out, man. Tino, any update on the Japanese bond market? Heard they may use them as leverage against the US. The only way that you can really utilize the Japanese bond market is if the Japanese increase their interest rates. It's the only way they can actually have leverage against Donald Trump. But what you've got to understand is this. If dollar yen keeps on climbing up, that's when the Japanese will start to step in. But it's coming back down. But there's only 2 ways that they're going to do something about it, right? If the interest rates on the yen are high, if they increase them, then that's going to really be a problem for carry traders. That will then just wreck the markets, okay? But if dollar yen goes up against the yen and becomes more expensive, that deflates the yen. Then the Bank of Japan will step in and start buying dollars to deflate it. Trump doesn't want that. So this is why you're not really hearing too much about Trump and Japan. And he's like good buddies with them because he knows that if he can't pin them down in Forex intervention, he's calling it fraud and manipulation. All right. He needs to be very careful with Japan because they could stick it to him one way by the carry trade and fluctuate the value of the dollar based on when they decide to buy dollars, convert to yen to deflate the dollar yen going down. You know, so it's to prevent the dollar yen from going up. Sorry. So it's one of those ones, if you understand that logic. Nice to meet you, Dynamic Entry. How's the pimp game going? Car edition needed. Okay, we'll work that one out. Where do you think is a good place for a short? A good place for a short on Bitcoin. Well, I mean, I have to be responsible to say go short on Bitcoin, okay? I've got to have an element of responsibility because most of you will probably try and run shorts if you're not running. Actually, how many of you are running shorts right now? Let's find out. Here we go. Start a poll. Shorts, yes or no? Shorts, right? Actually, you know what? I want you to type it so you can all get your little XRP and your XP. XRP, what a clown. Yeah, so you can get XP. So type it up and type what you've got and tell me what you're doing. How many of you are running shorts? And how many are running longs? Tino. No, I'm not doing that. How many of you are running shorts? Yes, yes, no, 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 no. I appreciate the guys that are in spot. Okay, this is for leverage traders. Yes, no, no, yes. Took profit early today. Already took profit today. Already wish I left a runner. Always leave a runner. Tino, what happens to gold on rate cuts? It increases in price. And as the US deficit keeps on going up, so does gold. Gino. Bruv, Gino. Come on, man. Gino. you going through the alphabet and working out what letter actually went with Tino? And you thought G might actually sound good. I'm joking with you, man. It's all love. I'm playing. Gino, where do you think Bitcoin goes locally for the summer? Most of summer, right? People say that the markets tend to be a little bit quiet in the summer. I don't think we're going to have a quiet summer, ladies and gentlemen. Not with this administration. No chance. You know, they've got all their money locked in the money markets, okay? And they're just concerned about what the next move is. It's like when you had that one day where the markets moved 12%, like NASDAQ up nearly 12%. They don't want to miss out on the opportunity, and that's what marketplace we're in right now. Okay, so a lot of you are running shorts. I think that answers your question, my friend. Tino, why do you say because of Wall Street there will be no alt season anymore and Bitcoin dominance keeps rising? You know the game, man. When they realize nobody gives a shit about ETH, they will buy ETH. And I agree with you. Okay, I do agree with you. But what you've got to understand is the mentality of the dominance, the mentality that people have with Bitcoin. It's not guys in crypto anymore. It's not those guys. The guys in crypto, when it hit the first all-time high of 69,000, okay? Those guys are gone. When I say that, they got all liquidated, hypothetically. They all got liquidated and, you know, they had capitulation. They gave up hope. Some of them still stuck around. But now you've got new whales coming in. And those new whales are your Wall Street players. And that's the problem we've got. Like, you've heard about it. They've got now strategies with shorting Bitcoin, buying the ETF. Okay, they'll short leverage trade Bitcoin and then they'll go long spot. Like, yeah, they were doing this before, and some whales were probably doing that beforehand. Okay, but you've got a different mentality right now, you know, and your ETF itself, it impacts it completely because this is where your Bitcoin is going. And if this balance keeps on going up, so will the Bitcoin dominance. And as long as this balance keeps on going up, that is more Bitcoin being retained. That means your Bitcoin dominance will keep going up and your altcoins will struggle, which is why I say if the sentiment across the board is positive, everything will go up. That's my point. People are thinking they're going to be taking profits out of Bitcoin and going into altcoins. Nah. They're going to take their profits out of Bitcoin and they're probably going to go and buy something else like euros or exchange it for gold. They'll go in real estate and then they'll just move their money about. They'll go and buy the US bonds. Okay, that could be something. That's the problem with the guys in Wall Street. Once they sell the Bitcoin or sell the ETF, whatever they're doing, they're not going directly to altcoins. They're going into the asset classes that they know. And that's the problem we've got. Wall Street has changed Wall Street has compromised the crypto culture. It has. And they're now coming in and it's a money heist. This is where your Bitcoin's going. Everyone's excited that BlackRock's picking up the Bitcoin. No, you shouldn't be because it's slowly going into corporate hands. And then it will get to a price point that I guarantee, right? This is the messed up thing. We're going to see Bitcoin hit a price where the ETF itself and the price of it is something that people are going to be reluctant to pay. Seriously. Could you imagine the ETF being $3,000-$4,000? If you're going on the trajectory that Bitcoin's going to be going up in price, what do you think this ETF's going to do? They're going to come and swipe it all up. No bank is allowed to hold Bitcoin. Only authorized participants, your BlackRocks, your JP Morgans, your Fidelities, they're the only ones. Welcome to monopoly here. You know? Figuratively speaking, unless another fund comes in and starts buying it and what have you. You got Bitwise and whatnot, Valkyrie, Franklin Templeton. But the bigger picture of it is there. That's what I think is going to happen. That's why the ETF itself, you're snubbing the ETF right now. Look, you are snubbing this Bitcoin ETF at $60. Come check me when it's $1,000. Come and check me when it hits $1,000 if we're going on the trajectory of Bitcoin's price, going to 1 million, going to 4 million, going to 13. What do you think your ETF's going to be? What do you think the fees are going to be for BlackRock to charge you to hold the ETF? So you're going to get pushed into a corner where you can't afford to buy the ETF because the fees will eat you alive based on the price of the ETF, okay? And the handling of it. You go over to Bitcoin and like, that's currently sat at like 4 million. Ugh. It's a bit of a problem. That's my point of view, man. It doesn't mean it has to happen. And I'm not saying it to scaremonger you all, but I'm just saying to you, like, it's going to be a long time before that actually happens. Bitcoin needs to go up, you know? But why are we getting price projections of 1 million? Why do they tell that to people? We're at 106,000, bro. Let's get to 300,000. The prospect of 1 million looks very, very likely when you're at 300,000. But it's like when Bitcoin was at like what? When it was at 15,000, it's going to 100K. Or when it was, you know, even lower than that. You know, it's, I guess we started hearing about the 100K Bitcoin and about 8,000 or whatever. But, you know, quite frankly, for me, it's focus on a price point that can be realistic. That volatility could end up sending it. Like the next price point, realistically, ladies and gentlemen, is the 120, 130,000 mark. Because Bitcoin easily in a week can shift up towards what, 23%? It can easily move up 23%, easily, you know, in a week, you know? So that's my point of view. That's my point of view. Tell me I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. That's my opinion. Any other questions? According to JD Vance, 100,000 Americans will be buying Bitcoin in 2025. Your thoughts, please. Well, 100,000 Americans will be buying Bitcoin in 2025. Okay. Is that based on a salary on a survey that would you buy Bitcoin? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Would you buy Bitcoin? Yes. Okay. How much you buying? Probably put about $50, $60 in there. Oh, okay, cool. Is that on the assumption that you're going to get every single one of those people that purchase it are going to be paying the price of it? Or they're just buying Bitcoin? Don't want them buying Satoshis. I don't want tuppence. I want the Bitcoin, the big numbers. You know? That's what we need. Tina, can you give an opinion on gold? You know, gold. It's been hard today, man. I struggled today with the setups. It was a tough day. And lately I've been seeing every time I put a setup out, okay, news comes out, and that's in the morning before anyone's bloody awake, before America even opens its eyes. They just tell everyone it's fucking wild. Anyways, gold. Expectation of interest rates not being cut. Gold's going to be coming down. They're not cutting rates yet. If Trump has to meet Powell and be like, yo, come on, cut the rates. Not there. 2018, a 40-year Japanese government bond yielded as little as less than 2.5%. Just 2 years ago, a 40-year Japanese government bond yielded minus 1.3%, less than 1.3%. The same bonds now yield over a record 3.5%. Not normal, Tino. No, it's not. The thing is, Japan won't budge unless their short-term interest rate, which is now still, I've said it before, it's still less than minus 0.1%. Their target needs to be 2% for the short-term interest rate. They're not there yet, so they're not going to they're not going to increase their rates. They're not. It's negative interest. They're not going to do it. Once they get that target up, then it's a different story. Tino, why wear a winter jacket inside? You call this a winter jacket, bro? This is the thinnest thing on earth. It's not a winter jacket, my friend. Can you take a look at bank unrealized losses? What will happen? Look, even if I don't even look at the bank, listen, if I don't look at the bank unrealized losses, I can tell you this. 2018, there were 252 billion, okay? Stock market corrected on that principle, okay? Now, not necessarily that principle, but they defaulted on that and they were at 285 billion. Lately, going into it, they're around 552 billion, okay? There's no market correction right now. Seems like everything's fine. They're going to increase your US deficit, and that's not even causing the markets to move until they increase it. They know it's increasing, but everyone's paying too much attention on the tariffs. It's a very Very tricky game. All you know right now, the most solid thing is what's the scope for interest rate increases or decreases? Okay. Right now, we're getting data suggesting it's not going to get cut. Gold's price is going to go down. But if you've got safe haven mentality coming into play, where we don't know where we are with the tariffs, gold's price could technically still go up if investors are in concern about things. But the US bonds went up today. So that means investors need to start locking in risk because they could have the expectation that interest rates could be cut. But it's very, very intermittent. There's nothing solid. And that's the problem with this marketplace. The macros aren't holding out, you know? Anyways. Anyways, with that being said, hit the like button on the way out, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll be tuning into you all tomorrow. It's core price index tomorrow. All right? Take care of yourselves, gang. Peace.